And welcome back to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. It's Monday morning. Mark, how was your weekend?
Well, not to be technical, now it's Monday afternoon. But let me tell you, welcome to the COVID life of 2021. I had a pretty good weekend. I found a mask that I loved, and I'd lost it. And it had slid down off the center console, and it was tucked under the passenger seat, and something else dropped, and I saw it, and I went down to pick it up, and I was like, oh, there's my mask. And it was like 3 minutes of pure joy because I didn't know where this thing went, and it's comfortable, and it's my favorite one.
That is like the most COVID story you possibly could.
It is.
Have I told you, real quick before we get into Beane? So my girlfriend's family, she has a mom and two sisters. They buy like the huge packs of the masks with like all the like stripes and floral designs and different shades of teals and peaches and, you know, like my shirt. And anyway, they lay them all out like on the couch ottoman, and they do like a snake style draft for the mask. And it is like, I'm telling you, it's kind of riveting. It's kind of cool to watch.
So do you have like 60 seconds to make a decision? Is that how are they like?
I mean, they'll start to pressure them a little bit. No, but it is neat to see like everyone trying to wait on the certain designs, and like someone will reach in and take one, and all three, I saw it with my neck. So yeah, speaking of things in 2021, a mask snake style draft, almost like fantasy football, but you're drafting masks.
Well, my story wasn't that cool, but I think my story is relatable to people who, when you like put your hand in a coat pocket or something, you're like, there it is, there's the one. So anyway, that was, I'm not gonna say that was necessarily the high point of my weekend, but it was one of them.
No, it makes sense. So unfortunately, Beane last night on American Idol, he gave a really great performance. Unfortunately, he will be done. He did not make it into the top 9. They did live voting last night. I enjoyed his rendition. I thought he put on a good show. I'm not sure if he was like ever going to be able to like crack the top 4, top 5, but I do think last night he had a shot. I was a little surprised that he didn't get the 8th or 9th spot.
Well, okay, truth be told, here's my confessions of it. This is the first whole episode I've watched. I've seen all his performances because people put them on Facebook and whatever. So yeah. It's the first one I watched start to finish. So I saw everyone perform, and I got to interview his family. If you didn't read the article, it's on NorthcentralPa.com, and that was really fun. I did that on Saturday. So like I was ready. I thought what was telling was his pre-performance interview, where he said, like, I don't have the traditional booming American Idol voice. And as I watched through with these 12 people, I would say that he was not the best singer, but he is the most like Broadway ready performer because he sings really well. I mean, obviously all these people, but he is the most like stage present. There are some that can just stand there at the microphone and belt it, and they do that better than he does. But as far as a showman, he's ready. And what was funny too, in watching this through, I was all ready for like, all right, I know he's going to beat him. I know he's going to beat her. And with every person, I was like, oh, she was good. Oh, he was good. Oh, she was good. Oh, he was good. And as it got through, I was like, wow, this is going to be tougher than I thought. And I thought his personality would carry, but these sob stories with all these other people, and so he wrecked his car, and the kid that cried, like I could go on and on about that. Like the kid that cried, I was like, well, he's getting through.
It's funny you bring that up because I actually thought, and I'm not saying that kid didn't deserve to move on. I believe his last name is Metz, but it's like it had to make a difference, right?
Yeah.
If you're talking about, he was one of the last 4 with Beane, and I did say to my parents last night, I was like, he's in trouble because the kid who cried, like if I'm just a random person sitting at home and I was going to take the time to vote for somebody, I'm probably voting for the kid who cried over Beane last night. And I'm a crier. Like my players, like when I'm coaching, they will tell you like I'm emotional, like I'm a crier. I am not making fun of someone for crying. But in that circumstance, like I looked at my parents and I was like, nope, like the kid who cried is getting through. There's no way he didn't get more votes based off of that than what Beane got keeping it together.
I said the same thing. And talking to his family the day before, I was like, listen, I know, this is like golf. You're rooting for everyone else to suck. Don't pretend that you're not. In golf, when you're playing, you hope that the guy's hitting it in the water and and I'm like, you're hoping, and we were just joking. I was like, you're hoping people forget the words. You're hoping they trip and fall. And then right after it happened, and the kid and all the judges were like I thought they were all going to go up and give him a hug. And like, oh no, you were great. It was perfect. And it was perfect. And then like through tears, he's like, I just wish I hadn't messed up. And they're like, you didn't mess up. And I said the same thing. I was like, that kid's through. Yeah. Whether he was supposed to or not, he's through.
No, I don't disagree with you. I will say this, and I mean this as a huge compliment to Brennan. I think he did the most with the least. I know that sounds very like, oxymoronic, but I think when you look at the voices that were left and you look at how far he got, I think he could have snuck into the top nine last night. But I think after that, at that point, he would have needed it to be a popularity contest, because there's 5 or 6 people on that show that are just out of this world. Like their voices are just better. And again, I hope he takes that as a compliment. Like how far he was able to get with in all it, like his personality, his stage presence, his likability, like he carried himself way further than what his voice did. And he has a great voice. But I think it's a compliment to him that he made it this far when you look at the voices that were left.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, and I know some of the kids are 15 and 16. So he's got a little more polish to him because he's already been to Berkeley School of Music and he's a little bit older than some of these kids. But when you just watch him and like he could do Broadway yesterday, like he's ready. And some of these other people, a lot of these other people that are still alive, they'd be like, you can sing well enough to be on Broadway, but all the other stuff, you have a lot of work to do. So kudos to him. I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see where life takes him from here, because he's certainly made himself some money. There's no doubt about it.
And he's certainly talented. I think it's down to 3. You seem to think it's down to 2.
Well, we discussed this, and I was thinking this, and again, I told this story before. I watched my ex and I watched one episode of The Bachelor and one episode of The Bachelorette. And during The Bachelorette, when they got to 10 guys, I was like, well, those are the 2 finalists. And I was right. So I was as obnoxious as you can imagine all the way through. Sure. Which is funny because when I was watching The Bachelor, the chick that I liked didn't even make like the top 15, which really, it's funny. So after watching one whole show, I think I have the final 2. Now, I'm not taking into consideration, how many Instagram followers they have and how many Twitter pure like talent and who can do this. I'm down to 2. You say you're down to 3.
I'm down to 3. Do you want me to say my 3 first?
Give me one of them. I'll tell you if I agree.
So the last, Willie Spence, the guy who performed last, is incredible. So he sang the song from Harriet. He is, to me, if you were just talking about like just somebody who, if you had to pick today, he's the winner. Like if you were just going off of vocal performance and ability, he has been the most consistent through it. So Willie Spence is in the top 3.
Okay, see, I didn't have him in the top 3. I think he's Ruben Studdard, and I kind of think they've been there, done that, and so I don't know. He can sing, but
I'll say that he's the only one who could have done that Harriet song at the end of the show. There was nobody else on the stage that has his range and his depth. Like I don't think anybody else could have done it.
Okay, so who else you got? Who's number? And these are in no particular order for you. These are just your top.
I have, from the beginning of this, from her audition, I have said that the best person is Grace Kinsler, the blonde lady. She's 20 years old.
What'd she sing last night?
She was the first performer. She sang "Happy" by Pharrell.
Oh. No, I don't have her either.
See, to me, I called her from her audition. I think her and Willie are the 2 that have stood out by far the most through this competition.
All right, who's your third one? Maybe we won't match at all.
My third, and I had it down to 2 until last night, and her performance was so good last night. I think she's now catapulted herself with a chance to win, is Casey Bishop. And she sang the Wizard of Oz song last night.
Okay. My 2, that, like, all things considered, and this is again the way I watch. I watch these shows. Used to watch America's Got Talent with my daughter, and I would say, like, the family jugglers or the dance group or the comedian, and she would always yell at me and say, they have names, just learn their names. And I was like, well, I can't. When I'm watching it last night, when it was all said and done, I said the white chick who sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow and the black chick are the two that I think.
Alyssa Ray is the one who sang the song from the I always forget the name of it, the circus musical. I always forget the name.
The Greatest Showman.
The Greatest Showman. I think she's the most overrated one on the show.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think her voice is it gets drowned out very easily. Like, even listening to her do the Greatest Showman song last night, I felt like I could hear more of the background than actually her. Like, I actually thought the song in the background carried her.
I just think she's got, well, I mean, they can all sing, and obviously she can sing. I think she's got is panache the right word I'm looking for? Like, and I think because of her, she could go everywhere from, like, the sequined, it looks like she's wearing a $500,000 dress to sweatpants and a basketball jersey. Like, sure. I think she can run the gamut, and those were my two. And I know the Somewhere Over the Rainbow girl, because I know she sang, what'd they say? She sang Temple of the Dog or something. Like, she obviously has range. I think she has song range, and I think the black chick has, like, I don't want to say appearance range, but I think she'll be able to go, because the Somewhere Over the Rainbow girl just kind of has that, like, almost like the Natalie Merchant, just kind of a down to earth more. Like, I can't see her dressed to the nines. I see her as kind of like a 90s grunge-ish. So anyway, those are my favorite.
Well, and she was the best performance last night.
She was fantastic.
Having watched almost all of these because of Beane being on the show, I did not think she was capable of doing what she did last night. And when she was finished, I was like, I need to reconsider putting her into that top tier, because she was great last night. So that I would agree with you on Casey Bishop. She has a real chance to win it now, which I think a week or two ago, she was just kind of hanging around, and now it's like she could really win it.
Well, we'll see. And because Beane's out, they've lost a viewer. So I will just follow to see how close I was to right. But
I wish you could get a TV demographic of like North Central Pennsylvania for American Idol next week, now that Beane is out. And you could compare it from this past week to this upcoming week. It is
going to plummet. And I thought, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, her name's Casey?
Casey Bishop.
She's like 16, isn't she?
There's a lot of younger. It is a young group this year.
Like, I was surprised. I thought she was old. Like, I would have said young 20s. And who was the black girl you said? Alyssa
Ray.
I was watching that. My son had walked into the room, and he's like, she doesn't look 19. I would have guessed she was 26 or 27. I just think that I thought the 15-year-old that didn't get through, I thought she looked young. But everybody, I just think they look a lot older than they are.
Yeah, no, it's a young crowd for sure. This is the 1-year anniversary of the premiere of The Last Dance, when we were all shacked up last year and we weren't sure what to do with ourselves during, kind of the first real, like, lockdown, shutdown, whatever you want to call it now. ESPN premiered The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan Chicago Bull documentary, and I think we were all kind of glued to it. You, however, actually did not. You ended up binging it afterwards.
Well, it's funny. You were glued to it. Like, yes. As Beane's family couldn't wait till Sunday night at 8 o'clock to watch. Like, that's how you were when each new episode came out.
Oh,
you were. You know what? As I was thinking when you told me this, I don't even know if I ever finished it.
That's impressive.
I kind of got to a point where I was like, I didn't want to finish it, and it was kind of a workout, like ride the exercise bike thing. Because while I was watching it, I was riveted, but I knew it was, there was an end, and I didn't want to get all the way through it. So I'll bet I never finished it. So I might have to go back and start at the beginning again.
That's unbelievable to me that you didn't finish it. I believe it got nominated for documentary of the year. I don't know if it's going to win or not, but like it was that good. And I do remember like it was a cultural thing. Like when you saw people on Monday, you were talking about The Last Dance and what you remember and what your favorite parts were. There, a couple, like the whole Rodman series was fantastic. Getting to actually hear Phil Jackson's opinions on the situation and different players was great. And then also, I told you, like, there's a couple of end of episodes where you get to see Michael Jordan kind of talk in a way. He was exactly what I thought he was, right? Like, I'm not sitting here to say like Michael Jordan was perfect, but like it was fascinating because in your head you think you know what he was like, and then to get to see him talk about this stuff and hear him like very openly, like kind of, I don't want to say be cocky, but there is an egoness to him that you were expecting. To get to actually see it was fascinating.
Well, when I watched it, there were a lot of fascinating things about it. It wasn't just like the basketball, like how did they win? When I'm looking at this, one of the things that I took from it and that I've read about it, because when this was going on, there was lots of other stuff written about it. I don't think Jordan's really good friends with any of these guys. And I know that Jordan has had this big falling out with Charles Barkley, who they used to be best friends. And it all started because Charles Barkley was an analyst that said Michael's just not a very good owner, general manager, because the Charlotte Hornets never win. And Jordan, like he criticized him and Jordan kind of cut him off. So as I'm watching this, and like if you get to the point in life where you are, however old he is, in his mid-50s probably.
Oh, yeah.
Is that later than that, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. If you get to the point in life and the only people that are really close to you and around you are on the payroll, was all of it worth it? And that's the thing. Like when I just watched the Tiger Woods documentary, which I got through the whole thing because it was much shorter, was it all worth it? When you see all this stuff that they go through, and Jordan hasn't struggled like Tiger did, and Jordan hasn't, and I know he's been through divorce and whatever, but lots of people have been through divorce. But was the obsession of winning, and it worked for him, but was it worth it if at the end of the day he's not friends with Scottie Pippen, he's not friends with B.J. Armstrong, he's not? Yeah. That's the question I take from it.
I 100% agree with you. And this would be like not a rebuttal, but I guess like taking it one step further. I think if you're like Michael Jordan or you're like Tiger Woods, you can't shut it off. So the only thing worse than not winning would be not winning and not being able to turn that off in your brain. So if you're them, you have to be who you are. You have to do whatever it takes to win. Thank God you won, because if you didn't win, like you said, like you think he's a lonely man now, but even in the documentary, the people that didn't necessarily like him, they say like it worked. Like he was a good leader. Like he was getting us to be the best we could be. So even though they're not friends, at least there's a middle ground, or at least like a mutual respect. So the catch there is if you don't win, none of that exists. And it's an even worse world that you live in. I just don't know if they could turn it off, because I agree with you. Like it's lonely, and is it worth it? I don't know. But what I do know is for people like that, you can't shut it off.
I know. And it's a very valid point. I think to a large degree, you're right. But I think as normal schmucks like the rest of us are, we always see all these famous people in whatever avenue of life, and we think that would be wonderful. And if we had all this and all this money, and every Monday morning when we wake up and go to work, we're like, if I was just this. But you see all these people who get to the top and have all these struggles, and I'm not sure. And the Tiger Woods documentary, we see it all in the entertainment world all the time, because we've seen the Whitney Houstons and the Princes and the Michael Jacksons, and in the music world, the list goes on. And we've seen the Charlie Sheen issues, and in that part. But in the sports, we saw Tiger Woods, which was different than Jordan. Again, Jordan didn't have any issues, but when he was talking about it, it just seemed to lack happiness. Sure. And there, I mean, he was just by himself, and there's just like he's not good friends with Pippen. He's not. I know the Barkley thing came out that he's not friends with Barkley. I don't know if he's friends with Tiger anymore. I don't know what happened there, but they used to be golfing buddies. So it's weird. It's a very weird.
I think to win that much, you're never satisfied. And it goes right along with what you're saying. Like, if you can never be satisfied, you're going to end up in a lonely world. That's just the reality.
But when I look on the flip side of it, is like I see guys like Shaq and I see guys like LeBron.
But they didn't accomplish. Like, there's a reason Tiger and Michael are here. It's just a different world.
But and my aspect is, aren't they here because they were better than everyone else?
Sure, but why were they better than everyone else?
Because God made them better than everyone else.
I disagree. No, I think they were better. I think they were better than everyone else because of that mentality. Like, they were never satisfied. And whether you were playing against them or with them, you were in their way from getting what they needed to get. Maybe. And for most people, that's a one-sided conversation. That's hey, you're on my team, you're my buddy. And if you're on the other team, you're in my way. And for people like Jordan, that was not the case. Not only was the opposing team in the way, his teammates were in the way, and you need to be ready. Because if you stop me from accomplishing this, we have a problem. And seriously, so I think for people like that, it's a lonely world. Whether you win or not, you're going to be lonely. I would say for people like Tiger and Michael, it's important that they won because that's all they were going to have at the end of the day anyway.
But I think that I don't know. I think that in a different environment, in a different background, like last night, or I don't know if you watched it, Stuart Sink won this weekend on the PGA Tour. He's 47 years old. He's kind of found a rebirth. It's like his 9th win of his life. Tiger had like 100. Stuart Sink has won 9. Stuart Sink won 1 major. Tiger's won 15. But Stuart Sink's out there with a 4-stroke lead on the 18th hole, and his 21-year-old son is caddying for him. Mm-hmm. And you just look at this and say, is Stuart Sink happier than Tiger Woods? Well, right now Tiger's hurt. But, like, has he had a better life? And I think they said Stuart Sink's wife went through cancer. And now she was there, so I guess she's in remission or doing okay or whatever. But, like, I just look – there's no doubt in my mind that Michael Jordan is a better NBA player than LeBron James. I think LeBron is in the argument, but I would pick Jordan over LeBron every day of the week. But in life, I would think that LeBron is happier.
Absolutely, 100%. Because he decided there's not that weight on him, and that's good for him. But that's also why he'll never be Michael. And I like both of them. But you're exactly right.
But if you're choosing, wouldn't you pick to be LeBron? Isn't happier better?
As a human, you would pick to be LeBron. I guess my point is that if you were Michael or Tiger, I don't know if you got to choose, and for 2 different reasons.
I get it. I
think LeBron got to choose.
Okay, that's fair.
That was good. That was legit.
And I think Kobe was much more Michael than LeBron.
100%. Yeah. Vaccination updates. I just saw yesterday, I think it was last night, Johnson & Johnson's going to be brought back in about a week. You and I are kind of pro that. We had talked about that before. But also it came out that the least vaccinated U.S. counties seem to have kind of a common or a familiar trait. And they were also predominant Trump voters. I kind of have like a separate take on this. I tend to be much more balanced when it comes to this stuff. I think it's always more towards the middle than what the news story or what people say. But I mean, when you have a president that says that they don't need the vaccine, this could be a result of it.
Well, and we have talked about this. We think there's just the loudest people are on the extremes, and that the people in the middle are much more boring of like, well, it may be that, it may be, we don't have all the answers, because the extreme people have all the answers and they know all the conspiracies. Yeah. So that's why.
And just so people know, like, you tend to lean left, I tend to lean a little right, but for the most part, we tend to meet in the middle on a lot of this stuff.
Right. It's just unfortunate that we've got to a point in societal history, in American history, where you bring up the topic and they talk about the herd mentality, and one side makes fun of the other side for herd mentality, but both sides have this herd mentality that depending on who's talking, that we are here, and that even with a global pandemic, there's no, I don't say no, because I know a lot of Republican friends who've gotten the shot and gotten in line and all that stuff, but it's just that everything has become so politicized, that it's sad that when it even comes to our health, and because politics, as you know and I know, there's a lot of hot air. There's more hot air than anything else. And when we're letting this affect our health, and those around us and loved ones, and those that are more susceptible and more at risk, all because of which way we lean politically, that's a sad reality.
Sure. So one of the things, so this was a New York Times piece. They basically came out, and like I said before, that the counties that typically have the least vaccination right now are the ones that tended to vote for Trump. But this was also part of the map, and part of what I think is not being taken into account. Like, I'm from Blossburg, Pennsylvania. In order for my mom to get vaccinated, she had to either travel to Sayre or Binghamton, or she was going to have to travel down to Williamsport. It's not easy to get vaccinated when you live in a less populated county right now in Pennsylvania. I can't speak for the country, but I do know in Pennsylvania, if you live in a more, out there county, if you live in a less populated one, you are less likely to be vaccinated right now, simply by geography and the distribution and the rollout of the vaccine. Because it was much harder for my parents to get vaccinated at their age than it was for somebody else's parents at the same age who happens to live in Williamsport or Binghamton. They could drive down the street and get it. And I think what you're seeing, in the same way when they put up the maps during the elections, red has their spaces, blue has their spaces. And I think what you're going to find is most Trump voters lived in that type of region. And so when they come out and they say, well, these Trump voters aren't getting vaccinated, I have no doubt that some of them didn't get vaccinated because their beliefs and what they've heard and what they believe in. I also have no doubt that this report didn't take into account the fact that the rollout doesn't really work well in a lot of states for people that live in less populated areas. It doesn't.
Well, I think one of the questions would be, like, in some places the rollout just didn't work. And which states, that would be an interesting thing. Does it matter if you had a Democratic governor, a Republican governor, as the state rolled it out? Because, here we have a Democratic governor, and for a long time, Pennsylvania was not doing well at all with the distribution. So at least in the middle of the state, maybe in the corners where Pittsburgh and Philly are, maybe they were doing better. But through the middle of the state, it was almost impossible to get one for a while. So that it is interesting, but yes, it's we have to get to a point, you would think, where the country starts to kind of blend a little bit, and we get away from the rhetoric of not only if you're on this side, I'm on this side, that we totally disagree, because that's not nearly as true as often as we think. But if I'm on this side, I have to think this. And if I'm on this side, I have to think this. And, like the Democrats don't always have to defend Wolf, and the Republicans didn't always have to defend Trump. And, it's actually better for everything in society. As a coach, it's better when you point out what your team's doing wrong. You can always blame the other side, but you're only going to get better if you look at what you're doing wrong and how to improve it. And that's where we're at. We this refusal to publicly criticize our own party, no matter who we are, is really the issue.
Yeah, and I think the key that you hit on there was that idea. I think this piece was more like Trump's right in the headline, and it's all. And the reality of it is, like, there's so much more to it than that. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's not a piece of it. I'm not saying it's not a part of it. But when you look at that map, it's so obvious. These rural areas, the rollout was not as good. The complications to get it, the travel, everything that it's involved played a part in this story that just wasn't attributed. Like it.
Well, I'm sorry. We talked about Bill Maher the other day. I saw Bill Maher this weekend. One of the things that he was talking about was, and kind of a feel sorry for the American people, is all these news outlets are in so much competition with each other. Back in the day, there was ABC, there was CBS, there was NBC, and they were all going to get theirs.
Right.
So they were more focused on being honest and balanced, as opposed to, we need to get ratings so we can get advertisers, so we can stay in business, so we have a job. And he's like, so it's harder for Americans to get the truth delivered to them directly because the newsmakers aren't worried about the truth. They're worried about ratings.
Yeah.
So they have to play to their audience. And then so whatever they're saying is already tilted, not because it's not even what they believe or what they know. It's because they're trying to do it for survival.
Yeah, absolutely. Last one, let's just have some fun really quick before we end the show today. Super leagues. So, we always talk about when you're a kid and you had the video games and you'd load up a conference or you'd switch divisions or you'd load a team. This is really interesting. Over in Europe, they want to create a super league that basically takes the best teams from across all the different leagues, and they want to create one super league. It would include Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United. So even if you're not a huge soccer fan, those names obviously ring a bell. And basically they're going to call it the Super League. Nothing fancy, nothing. They're just straight to the point. And now it's coming down that players who are joining this league, FIFA is basically trying to come and put the hammer down and trying to stop them, saying that they could be banned from participating in the World Cup, in the Euro Cup, different competitions if you decide to go and play in this super league. There's a lot of different ways to go with this. I'm pro. I think it's awesome. I think 100% it should happen.
Well, this is obviously something where the players or whoever realized that, we can do it better and we can make a better product. Yep. And the bigwigs, the stuffed shirts who are just sitting there just counting their money for years are now worried. Because they're like they've built a better mousetrap, and it would be akin to the NBA players forming a different league, and then the NBA somehow being able to step in and say, if you join this other league, you can't play in the Olympics.
Right.
Now in the NBA they wouldn't really care because it's the Olympics, it's not that much. But in soccer, the World Cup is the World Cup. So
real quick, to build off of your point, because this is immediately where my head went with it. We talk about in the NFL, you have to have a quarterback and all this stuff. Imagine if the NFL created a super league and it was just the 10 best teams. And every time you went to watch it, you were watching the 10 best quarterbacks and you were watching the 40 best wide receivers. And you were the quality of play would just be astronomically better than what you're already watching.
Yes. And you say, so you immediately say, why don't they do that? Because of money. Because the owners can make so much more money why do they bring in expansion teams? Because to buy an expansion franchise, there's some upfront cost of, $100 million or $500 million, or depending on what time you came in existence. So that's why they've always done it. They've always expanded for money, never for quality of play, because you're right. With each expansion, the quality of play gets watered down. Yeah. So it is a fascinating, and it's just, I don't want to say power to the people, but it's these guys that look at management and say, hey, it's when the pizza cook looks at the owner who never comes in and the only time he comes in is to empty the cash drawer. And he's like, listen, I can go down the street and rent a place and I can do my own pizza shop. Yeah. And he does. And the old owner's like, wait a minute, you can't do that in my neighborhood. Yeah. And that's kind of what they're scuffling over. And it's going to be interesting to see how it turns. I don't know what the laws of FIFA. I don't know how FIFA could do it. I don't know how you step in and say that kind of goes against everything.
That's the only thing they can do is say no World Cup, no that. But to be honest with you, I don't know. I think soccer, it definitely matter more. I'll say this to end it. I think American leagues should be a little worried. I don't think their hair should be on fire and they're running around sounding the alarm. But if I'm the NBA and I already know Dwayne Wade just bought part of the Utah Jazz, LeBron James has already come out and said he wants to be part of an ownership. There is a world where LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and all these guys who are already basically dictating what's happening in the league, there is a world where they get together and they say, hey, if the top 100 of us decide to go, we can create an 8-team super league. People are going to buy in. People are going to do it. I guess what I'm saying is it wouldn't be hard to start those dominoes. I think it would be significantly easy to do.
I said this back when I was doing sports talk 20 years ago. I said, as every league started expanding and hockey's expanding, everybody has. I said, there will be a league that steps in and says, we're going the other way. and we're going to contract. Now, I know baseball tried, and the players union fought it because, of course, what happens when you contract, you lose jobs.
Sure.
And this would be interesting if it came from the other side of not the owners saying we're going to contract and take jobs away or whatever the case may be. Right. If the players are like, the product could be so much better.
Yep.
Or even at the end of the NBA season. Because one of the issues that I don't know what they're going to do in soccer, how do you get arenas? If arenas have leases and they have, exclusive rights to these, then where are they going to play? Because there just aren't empty basketball arenas that hold 20,000 people. But if they go after the season and they're like, here we are, here's our draft, and we're going to play, there's 4 teams. We're going to take the top 50 players. We're going to play 4 teams in best of 7, best of 7, best of 7, and it's the dream, whatever. Yeah. Oh, yeah, people would watch it.
And see, I think what's changed since you probably talked about that on radio, I think it could be player driven. So like LeBron James can build his own arena. Like if the top 8 players decided, I'm going to have my own squad, I'm going to build this 20,000 seat arena, and we're going to play. And this is the James gang, and this is, Durant's Durangos. And I think 5, 10, 15 years ago, ludicrous, right? I can look at you right now and say that. And if I'm the NBA, I would be more worried. I think most people would be like 2%. And what I'm saying is they should probably be like 15, like 20. They should be more worried than what people realize.
Well, and here's another thing, as I'm thinking about this out loud. If you do it in the summer right after the NBA Finals, college basketball is not in. So you could use the college arenas. You would have less ticket draw, but this would be a TV deal. So
real quick, to go along with what you're saying, have you seen the cost of a Brooklyn Nets ticket right now?
No.
The upper deck is like $350. Because to your point, there's less seats because of COVID and everything else. So you could do a college arena, drive up the price of tickets, and you would make just as much. There'd be almost no difference.
Well, especially, A, supply and demand, and B, supply and demand that there's only, however many games. Because we're not going to have a whole season. We're just going to have this super tournament. And again, whatever they make in gate revenue would be this much compared to the TV revenue.
Yeah. No, I think this is just the beginning. I think this is going to – obviously, I'm not saying in a year or two, but 5 years from now, it would not shock me if there were multiple leagues that were having rumblings and players were upset and they were talking about doing this.
Here's what Barstool could do it, and then they could have fights at halftime.
Oh, they absolutely. It's all going to change. It's going to flip really fast. Really.
And you know how you're going to get your seats? Dogecoin.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Were you surprised to see me this morning?
A lot. I'm pretty much surprised to see every morning, but no, I don't know.
All right.
I was surprised to see you with a hat on. I'll say that.
Yeah, I like this. This is my Surf City hat. So big shout out to the guy I used to coach with, Patrick Zipfel. He let me stay in top sale, and I went and got a hat. Because this morning you were out on the waves. I don't know about that. I'm not exactly a wave rider. Not a surfer. I'm more of a on the deck with a drink in my hand with a fancy umbrella and just kind of smile and wave kind of person.
I can see that. You're a blender. You're a blender.
I do. Yes, I was telling you, I blend in very well. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be back. We're going to have the prize wheel back here shortly because I'm out of town. Obviously, we haven't been spinning the wheel because it's not behind me. But once I'm back in town, we'll be spinning again. We'll get back at it. And thank you again to Weiss Markets. They became our title sponsor here recently, and we really appreciate them helping out. We've already given out some Weiss gift cards to some lucky winners, and we'll get back to doing that later this week.
I was already in Weiss Markets today.
Look at that, crushing it. All right. Absolutely. Thank you guys for watching. We hope you enjoyed the show. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. Thanks for watching the Midday Show, brought to you by Weiss Markets on NorthcentralPA.com.
Oh, one more thing. Trivia tomorrow. Trivia with
John Mackey. Be sure to tune in. Can we say we were 5 for 5 last week?
Yes, we were.
5 for 5 last week. Tune in to see if we can duplicate it.
Even through the trick question, we did great.
Thanks for watching the Midday Show.
See ya.